Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, Ex-Girlfriend Wants to Cut Off Our Electricity? No problem. I was living with my girlfriend and a roommate, and we split the cost of every bill evenly, even though each bill was in one person's name. Well, that was the idea, but I naively helped my girlfriend pay her part of the bills, i.e. paid completely for most of them. The rent was in my name, the electricity in my girlfriend's, etc. Well, I eventually got tired of her crap, arguments, smelly gerbils, not doing chores, and we broke up. It was messy. She took ages to move out, making sure to mooch every penny she could before leaving. When she left, I immediately started a new electricity account in my name. A week later, I got a letter of confirmation in the mail, but I also received the electricity bill for the last 3 months my ex was living with us. I opened it without thinking. We couldn't even pay it if we wanted to because the bill was in her name. I shot her a text. Yo, you got the electricity bill in the mail. It's $120, so come pick up $40 from each of us. X, where's the other $40? We agreed I wouldn't pay bills after I move out. As if she did before. You were still living here for the time period of the bill. X, this is bullcrap, I'm not going to pay a thing. We had an agreement. Well, you can come over to get our part, or you can pay it alone. X, the way I see it, you can either bring the $120 to my place or have fun in the dark lol. You got me there. At this point I realized that she doesn't know I started my own account with the electricity provider. She thought that by refusing to pay, the provider would cut our lights. Good way to mooch another $40 from us, right? But that's not quite what happened. A few weeks later, I received another letter from Elec, company with her name on it. Probably a late payment warning. I sent her a text to tell her, and she responded, lol, why are you so desperate to talk to me? You know what you have to do. Another letter came in for her. This one was probably late fees. I have to guess because I never opened them. I messaged her and she said, I thought I told you to never talk to me again. As you wish, ma'am. More letters arrived, but from a new address. I googled the new sender's address and found that they were debt collectors. Scary stuff. It's too bad I couldn't say a word to her. Now about 2 or 3 months later, I received a phone call from my ex and I'm greeted by, what the fuck these people are calling my parents' house, I've got all these late fees debt collectors. I told her if she wants our part of the bill, she knows what to do. Realizing that she had no other choice, she caved and came for the money. My roommate and I didn't give her a cent toward late fees, and I probably looked so ducking smug giving her my money for the last time. The next story is titled, I don't work here anymore. Hey, boss, got an opening? Worked for a medical transportation company that had a contract with Medicaid. One of their many rules was that you could not provide any assistance to the patient inside of their house. One elderly lady had an old house with a very small foyer that you had to climb 3 steps to get to the main floor. The only other entrance was around back and up 2.5 flights of rickety steps to an old deck that opened into a bedroom. Upstairs. She's in a wheelchair. Common sense says take her in the front door, up 3 stairs and she's home on the level she lives on. Medicaid says take her up the outside stairs, dump her in the bedroom upstairs and let her worry about getting down to the living room level. We ignored their policy and took her in the front door anyway. A random inspection by a random inspector showed that we were not in compliance. We appealed, the inspector came out and saw the different options and decided that we had no case for appeal. Take her up the outside stairs. Nope. From then on, when the driver arrived at her house, he would get her out of the van in the sidewalk, and then get on the radio and tell the boss to shove his stupid job. Now that he was no longer an employee, he was free to assist this lovely person into her front door and up the stairs. Once finished, they would come back to the van, tell the boss they'd reconsidered, and ask for their job back. Boss was always understanding and took them back, but very carefully noted the 10 to 15 minute break in their employment, to show that the company remained in compliance. Aftermath, we had contests to see who could have the most dramatic "I quit" scene. Medicaid noted our activities, but couldn't put a handle on how to stop it. Malicious compliance achieved. The next story is titled, Company says I tip too high when I travel. Now I intentionally order more expensive food so I can tip what I think is an appropriate amount. When going over my expense report, my company saw I tipped 20% for lunch one afternoon. Lunch was $15, the tip was $3. They told me that is too much because I wouldn't do that with my money. Heck yeah, I do. I just took the better part of an hour of my server's time. The least I could do is leave $3. It's $3 for crying out loud, but rules are rules. However, my company is fairly generous, allowing me $75 a day to spend on food, which I never do, and that's about to change. For lunch today, instead of my usual salad or sandwich, I went for the lobster grilled cheese. And of course upgrades my regular fries to the duck fat fries. Enjoy, saving that 5% for the rest of my travel meal expenses. The next story is titled, Your FI Hired. One morning I roll into the office about 7:25, and get a dirty look from the boss as I head to the dispatcher's office to collect my day's work, supposed to be there for 7:15. I'd actually been working until about 1:30, 18-hour day, the night before, and was thinking that only being 10 minutes late wasn't bad. When I got my stack of papers for the day, I let out one of those low groans, and said, "You've gotta be crapping me, it was going to be another long day." Boss takes that as his chance to call me out in front of the rest of the office. "Hey, if you're going to show up late and then complain about work, we don't need you around here, you're fired." Dunno if he thought I would apologize for coming in late and ask to not be fired, but I knew that I could have a new, equally crappy job before the end of the day. So I called his bluff, and handed over my clipboard and walked away. He must have looked through my work for the day, and realized that he didn't have anyone that could do what I could do, and with the labor market crunch, he just didn't have anybody. On my way out to my car, I stopped and started chatting with my buddy and the dispatcher, having a smoke. Boss comes out and tells me to meet him in his office so we can discuss my attitude. I said, "I'm not going to your office, I just got fired." My buddy and the dispatcher shocked. Buddy says, "You know he put 18 hours yesterday, and 15 the day before that." Dispatch says, "Why did you fire him? We've got no one to do his run today." Boss is taken a little aback and says, "I didn't say you're fired, I said you're FI hired, so here's your route for the day." I say, "Well, if I just got hired, we should talk about my starting wage," and that's how I got a $2 per hour raise. The next story is titled, Kid Underestimates My Scooping Skills, Sorely Regrets It. Last summer I worked as an ice cream vendor on the beach of my hometown. Best job I ever had. People were nice to me, I got to work on my tan, it paid pretty well, but most importantly, we were allowed to eat the delicious ice cream in our breaks. One day, I'm serving a man and his son. The man orders a cone with 2 scoops for him and a cone with 1 scoop for the little one. The kid wasn't happy about that, and said to his dad that he also wanted 2 scoops. The dad explains that the scoops are pretty big and that one will suffice for him. I confirm this to help the dad, even offering to make it extra big. Still, the kid doesn't budge, instead he starts throwing a tantrum, nearly crying how he wanted 2 scoops. The dad, clearly not wanting to ruin his vacation mood, gives up and says to the kid he can have 2 scoops. However, he adds, "If you can't finish your ice cream like I said you wouldn't, no more TV for you, for the rest of the vacation." The kid happily agrees, claiming he could eat a whole tub of ice cream. Big mistake, kid. Me, being the petty person that I am, wanted to teach this brat a lesson. I proceed by scooping one of the most gigantic scoops I've ever scooped in my entire scooping career. I put it on the cone, the kid's eyes widen in shock. My scoop goes back for more, I see the kid tremble in disbelief. I scoop the second most gigantic scoop a scooper could scoop, and graciously add it to the first one. I hand the monstrosity I've created to the kid, who by now realizes he won't watch TV again this summer. The dad seemed pretty cool with it, he even tipped me a little, which was very rare. All in all, a pretty good day. The next story is titled, Friend Brings in Dad's Ashes Because Teacher Demands to Me Meet His Father. So my friend Talon's dad died about 5 years ago. They got him cremated, so Talon has an urn with his dad's ashes in it. One of our teachers was mad at Talon about something, I'm not sure what, but the teacher demanded to meet Talon's father. He tried multiple times to tell our teacher that his dad was in fact dead. But Mr. Mack Idiot wouldn't listen to him. So the next day, Talon shows up to school with his dad's urn and plops it on the teacher's desk and says, "You wanted to meet my dad, so here." I have never seen a teacher so mortified in my life. Edit. It's not that Mr. Mack Idiot didn't believe him, it's that he didn't give the kid an opportunity to explain. He just kept interrupting and sent him out. The next story is titled, Have a Problem with the Policy? Fine, I'll change it. I used to work as an administrator in a secondary school in the US, grades 9 to 12, around 10 years ago. We were a school that didn't have a specific zone or neighborhood, so to speak. Some of our students lived 30 or 45 minutes from the school, which made it necessary for us to sometimes conduct business with parents or guardians over the phone as opposed to in person. One day I met with a senior, grade 12, who was in a class that he and his father had deemed too hard for him, and since they didn't want it impacting his ability to attend college, asked for him to be changed out of the class. It was early in the semester, and there was plenty of space available in other courses, so I had no problem doing it after a conversation over the phone with his father. The student was a good guy, and he was totally grateful to me for helping him out. He would now get to enjoy his last year a little more, with one less difficult class to worry about. The next day, I get a phone call in my office from Mum, who is irate. She spends approximately 5 minutes berating me about changing his schedule. I indicated to her that Dad was on the contact list for her son, and he was allowed to make these decisions if he chose to do so. She is the person who put Dad on there several years before. Evidently, Mum put Dad on the list before their divorce. She had raised the child over the last several years by herself, according to her, and she should make all of the decisions. I didn't know this, and the records didn't reflect it. Since she knew this argument wasn't going to work, the next objection was against our policy of making decisions over the phone. The conversation went something like this. Mum, how do you know for sure it was his dad on the phone? There's no way you can be sure. I can't believe you would ever make a decision like this without a parent present. By doing business over the phone, you could be speaking to anyone. She continued on, and I tried to explain that it is necessary at times to use the phone, since parents work in another town and may have to travel an hour or more to get to the school. Well, she wasn't buying it. So finally, I relented. Ma'am, you are right. I will no longer make decisions like this over the phone. I am going to insist parents come in and meet with me in person. Mum, good. Now I need my son to be put back into the class he was in originally. Ma'am, I'm sorry. You are going to have to come in and meet with me. I'm no longer changing schedules over the phone. How do I know you are this student's mother? Mum, I can't do that. I live 45 minutes from the school, and I work every day. It was at this point she dropped all of her objections. The next story is titled, Force This Kid to Take the Final. Fine, he'll take it. So this happened years ago when I was in high school, but I smile every time I think of it. My high school had a policy that anyone who has missed less than a certain number of school days could pick one class they had and are in to skip the final. You could get a couple extra days for college visits, but otherwise it was very straightforward. Awesome policy, and we all loved it. One year, we had this kid who was in 8th grade and had been diagnosed with cancer. He spent a lot of his year sick, getting treatment, going to the hospital, running to the bathroom to throw up, etc. Despite all this, he finished the year with an A in his Spanish class. It was his only high school class, so it was the only final he would have been able to skip. Administration was not going to let him skip the final because he had missed too much school. He and his parents asked them to make an exception, given the situation, but administration wouldn't budge. His teacher stood up for him, but was told this kid had to take the final no matter what. He had missed too many days and there would be no exception. The teacher said okay, but told her class not to study for, worry about, or exempt her final. Then, the first day all her students showed up for the final, she told them to take out a piece of paper and number it 1 to 3, leaving one line in between each number. She then asked 3 questions along the lines of, what is your name? How do you say yes in Spanish, and how do you say hello in Spanish? Then she collected the final. Everyone got an 100 that year, and she became a legend. The kid has been cancer-free for over 5 years now. The next story is titled, You Want Me to Duck Off? Okay, I guess the lab just wasted $4,000. This happened during my first career, when I worked as a scientist in a diagnostic lab. I had been working for about 2 years at this point and had just been promoted to senior scientist. I had 2 supervisors in my section, each assigned to oversee half of the tests being done in our small corner of the lab, Rory and Tanya. Tanya was the senior-most supervisor of the 2, and secondary to my department head, she had the most authority over me on any given day. She also hated me. Never did figure out why, but she hated about 3/4 of the people working in the lab, so I never took it personally. I just don't think she liked people. The lab tends to attract people like that, funnily enough. We always used to joke about being the rejects stuffed in a hole at the bottom of a hospital to be kept away from the general public. As for Rory, it's important to note that he had a very good reputation in the lab of never lying. He was never once caught in even a half-truth, and he'd been working there for over 30 years. He was well liked and well trusted. This will be important later. One day I was doing one of the more technically challenging tests that our department performs. It's long, fiddly, expensive, and easy to screw up. Only senior scientists are allowed to do it unsupervised, and this was maybe the second time I've done it alone. We are talking 2 days just to get it set up. It was a nightmare. While I was measuring out some gelatin powder into a beaker, I accidentally elbowed Tanya. Our workstations were right on top of each other. This happened at least 4 to 5 times a day with everyone. I apologized and go back to what I was doing, but she flips out. Like full-on rage, screaming in my face, kind of angry. After a couple of minutes of her tirade, she says, "Just duck off, terrific moose, no one wants you here," and then she storms off to her office to cool off. Rory comes up to me, having seen and heard the whole thing, and asks if I'm alright. I say I'm a little shaken, but nothing too bad, and get ready to continue my work. But Rory had heard the whole thing, and he saw what test I was doing. He whispers to me, "Your supervisor told you to go. Best you do what she says, and if she causes a fuss about it, I'll be sure to tell the boss exactly what she said to you." Now, I knew Rory's reputation, so I knew I'd be safe. I also know that being told to leave early by a supervisor meant that I was still paid out for the rest of the day, provided I had worked at least 4 hours of my shift. The lab was actually pretty generous with time off, even if the pay and working conditions were crap. So I did exactly what Tanya had said. I ducked off home. Now at the stage one was at with that particular test, I had spent about $4,000 worth of reagents. Normally batches of 20 samples are run to try and keep the cost down, but it was still an expensive test when you include the nearly 3 days of work from a single scientist. This was one of Tanya's tests, and therefore Rory was not required to ensure it was done. No one in my section was very happy with Tanya, and she had gone off to her office and so couldn't see me leave, so no one went to tell her that the test was left unsupervised. Apparently she didn't come back for over an hour, and by then the test was ruined and had to be started over again. My boss was pissed. Tanya of course tried to throw me under the bus, saying I had left without informing anyone and that it was all my fault, but good old trustworthy Rory told the boss exactly what Tanya had said. I love Rory. I couldn't be punished for doing exactly what my supervisor had told me to do, so I got away with it completely. Unfortunately, nothing overly terrible happened to Tanya. She got formally reprimanded and had to take an anger management course that the hospital runs, but otherwise she got no real punishment. She never yelled at me again, and was always careful to word things just right around me after that though, so that was something. As for what I did on my half-day off, I went to the beach to enjoy the sunshine I almost never got to see working in the deep dark dungeon that is the average hospital lab. I made sure to bring in the pictures the next day. The next story is titled, "You Can't Use the Company TV for Your Switch." Sounds good to me. I work for a pretty well-known home improvement store, and we have a break room in the back with a TV for us to watch programs and sitcoms on our break. On this particular day, no one was using the TV, it was turned off and everyone was on their phones, so I figured that there was no harm in plugging in my Switch and sharing the fun of letting people have a go at it. While I'm watching people play, my supervisor walks in and sees the setup. She informs me that this is the company's TV, so you can't use it for personal entertainment. Big bummer, since people were having fun, but I can't lose my job, so I pack up my Switch. That day on my way home from work, I pass by a house that has a massive honking old school court TV out front that they're giving away for free. It's bigger than the TV that we have at my job and it still works. The next day I haul this massive TV out of my car and into the break room. I get a few odd looks but I don't care. Too focused on complying with the rules. I plug this sucker into the wall right underneath our company TV, now tiny in comparison to the court, and hook up my switch to it for people to play. Supervisor walks in and sees people playing on a bigger monitor. I'm not using the company TV, but I am using an even bigger personal TV. People are playing the Switch and having a good time. She tries to say something about how I'm blocking the view or causing disruption in the break room, but the other TV is turned off anyways and people are watching intensely as two coworkers are racing around in Mario Kart, so I don't really think it was that big of a deal. Not really sure if I'm gonna get a strike for this or not, but it'll be worth it if I do, and I think I might be able to argue that I followed the rules. Part of me expects that this TV will mysteriously disappear and that security will have no footage of who might have taken it, which will be funny since it's so big, but it's the thought that counts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.